Hello and welcome to the Home Assistant Podcast. My name is Rohan and I'm here with Phil. Hey, Phil.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. And as we have got a guest as well, we've got Guy. How's it going, Guy?
Yeah, good, Rohan.
This episode is sponsored by Home Assistant Cloud by Nabukasa. Easily access your Home Assistant instance remotely for a small monthly fee that supports the Home Assistant and ESP home projects. Configurations done by the user interface, so there's no fiddling with router settings, SSL certs, or YAML.
So if that broad Aussie accent wasn't a giveaway enough, Guy, whereabouts in Down Under are you?
Newcastle region.
Nice one. All right. So yeah, I always love a fellow Aussie on the podcast because I get to ask Australian-specific questions. I think a lot of home automation stuff is always Europe and US focused. So yeah, I think you reached out to us, in end of 21.
Oh, wow. Was it that long ago?
Forever ago,
yeah. I know. Yeah, it's been that long.
You've been on the list for a while.
Wow. So I'm glad to finally get you here. And your email, there was already so much stuff in your email that you had sent to us. So I'm hoping you've got a whole bunch more. So yeah, I'll throw it open to you. Do you want to just give us a bit of a rundown on where you started with your home assistant journey and home automation? Let you here today, I guess.
Yeah, so Home Assistant started back in the late 0.8 days, I think. I can't quite remember, but it's pretty standard story. Raspberry Pi, 3, running a couple of bits and pieces. I had some Philips Hue and Echo Dot.
Yeah.
And a Xiaomi S50 robot vacuum cleaner. And that was the beginnings of my smart home automation. I had those before I got into Home Assistant.
Yeah.
And I still have that vacuum cleaner, actually. It's done 7 hectares worth of cleaning or something silly.
And it's still going, wow.
It's onto its third battery.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
But not long after that, we were renting at the time. We moved into a new house and, brand new build, and kind of had grand plans for home automation everywhere. And I think the real kicker that actually got me into Home Assistant itself was an add-on by I was supposed to get the fella's name, but he's a legend. For an Actron Air, which is an Australian brand of air conditioner. And they've got this app, which is just really terrible. And he's got this add-on that, mimics a web server or whatever and means you get full local control of the air conditioner, and it actually works, and it's all through MQTT. So it was this really steep learning curve for me to go from, a vacuum cleaner and an Echo Dot and whatever else I had to MQTT, and I'd set up a Pi-hole instance and I don't even know what I did, but magic happened. And
magic happened.
And my Actron air conditioner is now the first thing I see when I open up my app on my phone, and
that's all you need.
Yeah, it's just amazing.
I think that's funny. Legend is Mike McGuire. I just found him on GitHub. So it's all in hacks. But how frustrating it is it when you get an app for an aircon, or even just, I think even 2 years apps are there's supposed to be smart home devices and the apps just suck, right?
Yeah. I actually, not to kind of go into too many details with Actron, but there's a fair bit of room for improvement there. And this simple add-on that Mike's developed is just amazing, and it is the whole system is so simple. Australian air conditioners in Australia are really, really, really basic, and and it works really well. But I've got some notes here for 2 and the 2 app is I've got a love-hate relationship with it.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, it's funny. It's funny what gets you into Home Assistant and stuff like that, right? It's again, in this case, it's just a terrible app experience that you're just all right, well, how can I not deal with that app? So, and build a whole ecosystem around it now.
Yeah. So even before that started, I'd already been frustrated with having the Amazon app, the Xiaomi app, and the Philips Hue app that didn't. They all kind of they all work. The Philips Hue app was good. They all kind of work, but they don't work together. Like there's no ecosystem there. It is just individual apps just doing their own thing.
So were you running everything in silos? Like there's Philips Hue running the lights over here. Amazon Echo would do music, or I'm guessing whatever it wants to do over there, and they would just be like siloed. There was no
there was no interface at all. And then that slowly changed. And once obviously Home Assistant was the real kicker for it, and now they all speak to each other. The vacuum cleaner, or I've got a second vacuum cleaner as well now. They run Valetudo. We spoke about it in the other episode a few weeks ago. They run that whatever firmware it is for full local control. So I don't. There's no app. There's a web interface that I use every once in a while, but really I just push the go button.
And how do you find that custom firmware? Just while we're on the vacuum cleaners, because I'd be interested to know your experience with it. How was it hard flashing your vacuums to do it? How are you finding the software limitations?
I couldn't tell you how to flash it again. I'd definitely need to Google it. It wasn't overly difficult, but I needed to, because I didn't have the hardware that I needed. I can't quite remember, but I needed to set up a Raspberry Pi Zero and then connect it to my computer with a USB cable to then run a script off it. Yeah, it was a little bit scary, like, flashing a $600 vacuum cleaner or whatever they're worth. But it worked fine, and I actually run, one of them runs the Valetudo firmware and one runs Valetudo RE, which is like a fork or a branch or whatever you want to call. And I didn't realise that they were different, and because I bought one. This is my intelligence coming through.
Magic happens again, right?
Like the original one got flashed, and then I bought another one for upstairs, and I flashed it at a different time, like fast forward a few months, and I just Googled something different and followed different instructions and flashed different firmware on it. So I haven't touched it there. I think they're a couple of revisions old now, and I just haven't even bothered touching them.
Yeah, so I guess then you don't have to keep them, like, once they're working, you don't then go in and update with new firmware or anything like that. Don't find the need to.
Like the base brains of the vacuum don't change. It's just some of the the add-ons that they put on top of it. And just on that, one of my favourite parts of it is at the end of a clean, you can actually set it to go to a spot. So downstairs, I'll just get it to go to park in front of the bin. So I'll get home and the vacuum cleaner's sitting smack bang in front of the bin rather than being on its dock, forgotten about, with a week's worth of vacuum cleaning in it. Just not very effective.
That's good. And do you get like local map control and everything? Like, can you see like a map of your house? Because I thought there were some limitations around that.
Yeah, I don't know. There's definitely ways to do it. I've tried and failed to get the map into Home Assistant. I honestly don't bother. And in reality, like they're actually set up to run. They get triggered when either like myself and my wife leave the house, or when we both leave the house, is what triggers them. So we never actually start them. It's really, really uncommon to actually start the vacuum cleaners. They just happen automatically.
Yeah, that's great.
So do you find that, like, because that's something I've been struggling with, right? So I think in December I got finally a smart vacuum, right? I got the Dbot X1 Omni or whatever. I don't know who names these things, but one of the things I've been doing is, at first I had it, every day at, 10:30 or something like that, start running the vacuum and do that. Right. So, and then it was like, okay, or I started at like 6 PM and then I moved it later. And then I was like, okay, now it's getting into like when my wife was asleep. And then, so I've been wanting to do the, when you leave kind of thing. But I'm always worried because, again, something we do is we just leave stuff on the ground, right? And I say we, but it's not me. But I'm worried about, like, clothes on the ground and stuff like that. And it does do a fairly good job avoiding a lot of that stuff. In my head, I'm still like, okay, what happens if it's catching something and it's like dragging it somewhere, right? Because even though it rarely happens, it has happened before where it's like dragged a sweater like quarter way through the house, something like that, right? So do you guys just typically, are you just more organized than we are? Or
yeah, so there's kind of two parts to that question. So there's like the standard kind of cables and things that get caught up every time. Like they're just, the house is set up so cables don't lay on the ground that can't get chewed up. Obviously, that's always a bit of a run the gauntlet when guests come and stay, and there's a lead on the ground. That happens every once in a while, but the wife's pretty good at tidying up the house before she leaves, just making sure that the long stringy things are not on the ground. But it's every so often it picks up a kid's toy or a shoelace or something, and it winds itself around until it detects that it's eaten something and stops.
Yeah, I've had that. Like sometimes my wife will leave like yarn or something, right? Like, and it's actually pretty good at detecting it, except if it's just catching just the edge of it. If it's like an opened up piece of yarn and then just done. Yeah,
this is like, these things are pretty basic on all the detection. They just wait until it gets wrapped around a brush that hard that it starts to go out on overload, or goes around a wheel that much that it starts to go out on overload and just goes into fault.
Yeah. I feel like this one's been a lot better than my old Roomba though. So, I mean, for what it's worth, but, so with yours, because that's a, because you said it is an older one, right? You guys have had it forever. So do you find that, again, because I'm guessing there's no like camera, LiDAR, any of those things on?
It's got a LiDAR on it. So
it does have a LiDAR. Okay.
Yeah, LiDAR. Hang on. No, it doesn't. It's got a laser. I actually don't know what it does. It maps the room. However it maps the room, it maps the room, not with the camera.
Yeah.
So, and it is good with that. You can set it up to do like individual rooms, and the rooms are set up, but I don't have any interface with Home Assistant to, clean the kitchen in the evenings or anything like that. You could do it, and I could probably yell at the Echo Dot on the wall saying clean the kitchen, and you could set that up, but it's the benefit to bother ratio there is not quite there. Every so often it resets the map every once in a while and renames all the rooms, and you got to start again.
Oh, that's fun.
Really? Oh.
Yeah, I haven't quite worked it out. I've managed to save a map now, so every so often I have to just reload a map in.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
So,
can you automate that?
Probably, but again, the 5 hours it would take me to do that versus once every 6 months going in being like, why is this vacuum cleaner doing something funny? And it's parked itself. It goes and parks itself over like underneath the couch and thinks that it's at the bin. And you're like, oh, something's wrong here. I'll reload a map.
Yeah. Well, I think I've based on Rohan's like story of his robot vacuum and everyone talking about them, I finally got the go ahead to look at getting a robot vacuum for our house. Now that we've got 2 kids, it's constantly messy. So these experiences that you guys have had are definitely going to help it. I think we've landed on the Roborock. I think the S8 is launching next month, which is, unfortunately it's going to be cloud controlled. I don't think Velotudo is going to work on it. I'm just going to have to suck it up. But that's apparently, the reviews I've read, the Roborock is probably the top of the line when it comes to robot vacuums, and I think
every so often you got to admit defeat and use a cloud.
It's brutal. It's at least that one is supposed to be better. I forget who it is. Somebody did a review comparing the Dbot, the Roborock, and the Roomba combo of the two Roomba devices, and the Dbot was the worst when it came to cloud reliance. And then the Roborock, I think at least stored the maps locally, maybe, if I remember correctly, something like that, right? So it's not, you're not hosed if you lose internet and stuff.
I just like the ability to say, mop the kitchen at night, right? Or mop the kitchen after dinner, right?
Yeah.
Because cheese goes everywhere, unfortunately, with a 2-year-old.
I can confirm that.
So before I will move away from robot vacuums, but you said you've got 2. So is that split level house, like one upstairs, one downstairs?
Just 2-story house. And you could take one upstairs and downstairs, but just move on, get 2.
Yeah, fantastic. Cool. So I'm guessing. So you started on the Raspberry Pi. Were you burning through the SD cards?
Never went through an SD card with Home Assistant. But it was about the time I had a Raspberry Pi 4, and you couldn't do SSD boots on the Raspberry Pi 4s at the time. Maybe you could, but it wasn't very easy. I can't quite remember. Yeah. And so I hung on to this 3B Plus for ages, and finally pulled the trigger on a NUC.
Nice.
And like instantly, I was like, "Oh, I wish I'd done this earlier." Just it's so much faster, so much faster. But then not long after that, the SSD boot became available on the Raspberry Pi 4. I was like, "Oh, I knew that was going to happen." But
right?
So it's been running for ages now. Yeah, like years. I went through a bit of had a bit of a hiccup there. I don't know what I was doing wrong, but I was flashing the image onto the SSD wrong somehow, and so I ended up going in there, installing Linux of some description and installing Home Assistant that way somehow, and it just turned into this massive nightmare. And then I had like a 2-day escapade of, being like, how do I get this thing to work? And I was just doing it. I don't know what I did wrong. It was something really basic because I've flashed 1 million SD cards with Raspberry Pi images, and now just running, HAOS, which has been really reliable. Have backups, the Google Drive backup. I've never had to call on it in anger, and I run a Samba backup as well. There's an add-on that dumps a local backup every day. I only do Google backups like once a week, I think.
That's cool. Do you do because Home Assistant introduced the backup feature natively a while ago, right? Because before the Google backup and all that stuff had to be, those are additional add-ons, but they introduced it natively into Home Assistant where you can just click backup and do that. Do you do those or still?
No, and it's a little bit of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And
don't blame me.
I think I haven't tested it. That's the bit that always makes me nervous about backups. I haven't actually tested the Google Drive backup, but the fact that I've got Google Drive backups and local backups on on my NUC as well, plus dumping onto my NAS once a day, like I'm pretty confident that my backups would be okay. In worst case scenario, it'd probably give me a good starting block to start again and actually have a naming convention and go about things slightly differently.
Yeah. And have your vacuum rename the rooms to everything it's supposed to be,
Yeah. Hopefully I never have to go down that path, but I get some really odd, I still get this odd error with Deconz. So I used to run Deconz for my Zigbee network, and I just didn't get along with it at all. And then ZHA was released and migrated to that. The second release out, I think I migrated over to ZHA, and I had much more success with that. But in my logs, I still get this Deconz error, so it's still stuck in my config somewhere. I don't know what it is. It's just this constant error in my log.
That's annoying.
And you've like completely removed Deconz at this point?
Yep. Nice. Entirely gone. And it's still just has this random error. It doesn't break anything. It just exists.
Just reminds you that it was there at some point.
Yeah. I remember actually hearing, this is ages ago, one of your guests was talking about making sure they don't get any errors in their logs. And I've got a few that are just these persistent errors. And one of them's from a vacuum cleaner. Some MQTT error, but it still works. And again, I'm like, it's working. I'm not going to reflash the firmware on this thing to try and get rid of an error that's not causing any issues. I'll break everything.
As you said, admit defeat at some point, right?
Oh, yeah, very definitely.
I used to be that exact same way where I'm like, not one error. Now I'll still get through it. Like if I'm on like holidays or something, like if I'm on like vacation and just sitting at home, something like that. And I'll be like, all right, let's try and fix some of these, but I'm not doing that anymore.
I do get in there every once in a while and just check that nothing's causing any issues in the background that I haven't picked up on.
Yeah.
But they're pretty rare. Usually if something breaks it, I'm usually aware of it fairly quickly. Not all the time, but.
All right, let's get into the fun stuff. Can you give me an overview on your house tech stack for as of today? What are you running in your house with? Zigbee, Z-Wave? You've got how does your smart home layout sort of look?
Zigbee and Wi-Fi are it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no Z-Wave. I got rid of Z-Wave a long time ago. I had a lot of dramas with it, and again, as like Australian Z-Wave stuff is really expensive. It's really limited. Like I wanted to do it. Like everything about it was good, and it just didn't stack up in the end. So, Zigbee running I think it's a Combi stick ZHA. It's been pretty much bulletproof. I had a few issues with some, not to try and bag out any brands, but I had a couple of IKEA bulbs that failed fairly catastrophically. So I've tried to move away from IKEA bulbs and just run Philips Hue bulbs. Yep. There's what have I got? 4 lamp bulbs and then a stack of downlights as well.
Nice.
And then on the Wi-Fi side of things, I run a Ubiquity network from like throughout the board. 4 access points dotted throughout the house. I've got Wi-Fi galore.
Nice.
So I'm not too concerned about having things running on Wi-Fi. It'd be nice to have. I run a lot of Shelley ones behind wall plates, so to kind of smartify a switch without actually seeing a smart switch on the wall. I run a lot of those, and it'd be nice to do a Zigbee equivalent for those, except there aren't very many options and they're expensive, and it's one of the things why bother when they work well.
Yeah. So a couple of questions. So one, Shelley, were you concerned at all putting them behind your wall? Like, I'm not sure if they're like up to Australian standard anymore.
Yeah, they are now. Yeah,
they are now. Yeah,
so
I know where they first
I initially started with Zigbee switches, like smart Zigbee, so Z-Wave switches.
Yep.
Behind the wall, I started off. I think I had like 4 of them, and they caused just headaches. They were just super unreliable. I didn't have a very good mesh at the time, but I thought it was good enough that the reliability wouldn't be there. And I waited and waited and waited and waited for the Shelley ones because I could see it on all the forums, everyone raving about them. And I waited, and as soon as they got Australian certification, bang, bought a stack of them, replaced them all, and then the Shelley, and then I don't know if it's called the Shelley 2, but like the 2-switch version one came out, and the dimmers, and I just,
And do you use those with the Hue downlights as well? So like, because I'm curious, like you've got your Hue downlights. If you just go up and switch it off as a dumb switch, like you kill power to the light bulb, which then loses the smarts with the Philips Hue. Are you using the Shelley to get around that? Like if someone clicks around? Yeah,
that's their primary use is. So the bulk of my Shelley ones do that. They're set up as a detached switch. So like in the bathrooms, I've got Philips Hue downlights and a Shelley one in the wall. So it'd be really nice to run ESP home and do it a bit fancier. I know some of the other people have a nice bit of code there that does it a lot nicer than how I do it. But basically on first fire, they turn the output on and the output stays on forever then. And when the switch gets turned off, it just turns the Zigbee light off itself.
Yep.
Which means that I can run. So I run circadian lighting.
Nice.
I think it's a Hacks add-on. So I run those on all the bathroom lights. So if I go in there at 1 a.m, I can still turn the light on. It'll be at 1% brightness and not blind me. That's literally what I use them for, to make sure at night it's nice and dim. And also when you walk into the room that you don't think it's a smart switch.
Yep.
That's like I'm really big on not seeing smart switches in the house. So
I've got Fibaro Z-Wave dimmers on on my switches. Pretty rock solid. There is always the Z-Wave sort of concerns. Like I've got to run Z-Wave JS on a different server, range issues. I really love Z-Wave for the recessed door sensors. Like I haven't been able to find a Zigbee equivalent door sensor that you can like drill into a door and have it completely hidden. It's always like the Xiaomi ones that just stick out the side. But yeah, actually for my switches, I went and got Clipsal Saturn Zen, I think they're called, and they've got little icons at the button. So, you know, for the bathroom, there's a little bathtub on the light switch. So, you know, okay, this switch is actually going to turn on the lights of the bathroom. But yeah, they're just simple like push buttons, right? And what I really like about those is now I can do things like triple click a button or double click a button, and it'll then tell Home Assistant to do another action.
Yeah.
So.
We're the scene controller too then at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's nice.
And like that's really good. I really like having double click, triple click, hold, functions. But I also try and set my house up that you don't have to have an instruction how to use your house.
So yeah.
I've got some little like Zigbee Aquara push button things out in the garage that only I use, and so I'll have double click and hold set up on those to do different things. But beyond that, it's all just turn a dumb looking light switch on the wall on or turn it off.
Yeah, and that's what all it needs to do, right? And should only if I don't know, do you use motion sensors to control the lights, or is it only switches?
No. So I like we've got a security system here. I try to piggyback off the motion sensors and. I don't know what I did, but I broke something. The security system still works, but the integration to get it into Home Assistant didn't.
Right.
It is. I got some Zigbee motion sensors, which were terrible. They would give me lots of false trips. It is something that I'd probably like to do as more of a presence in the house sensor rather than turning lights on and off. I don't actually have any lights that I would. Or maybe like a lamp in a couple of rooms I'd turn on when you walked in, but I'd use it for a whole house presence rather than turn a light on.
Yeah,
right.
Nah, like it's one of my favorite things. Like I've always said, like just walking around the house, lights follow you around, and the new presence, like those radar sensors that they've got, like the Xiaomi FP1, FP2 that's coming out. How quickly they can turn lights off, right? Like you can literally walk into a room, like it would be like walking down the hallway once you leave the hallway, bam, the lights are off.
Yeah, I need to get one of those to play around with it, I think.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot about them and they sound really good.
Also good for if you leave the TV on. So, you're sitting on the couch, someone leaves the TV on, they leave the room. Home Assistant sees, all right, no one's actually in the living room now. No one's watching the TV. I'll just turn the TV off. Because my daughter has a habit for just, okay, I'm bored with the TV now, run away, and then TV's on for hours. So I could at least automate that.
Yeah. I was going to say, you even get the little, I forget the model of it, but they're little cheap little presence sensors, right? They just look like they look like a tiny square that comes off of a board. I'll have to find it and we can link it in the show notes too. But essentially, those are BLE.
The Bluetooth ones, yes,
yeah, and they tie into BLE proxy. And I know at one point Paulus he had one, and he was showing us on the creators call, and it actually worked pretty well in terms of like how it's like just as long as it's positioned properly, you'll catch whoever you're trying to or wherever you're trying to get, right? And I think they were like $5 or something, like $5 or $10. So it's like fairly inexpensive too, right? So
yeah, it is on the to-do list along with a lot of other things.
I bet.
Actually, and you're mentioning proxies, like that's still on my to-do list. I've got some ESP Home things dotted around mostly for the classic MyFlora plant sensors and a couple of Bluetooth trackers that I use, and they're still not set up on proxies or anything like that. It's something I do need to do.
Yeah.
I haven't got around to doing it yet.
I don't blame you. I personally, I love the BLE proxy. I've been using it for a bunch of stuff, right? So
the concept of it is so good, and seeing what people are doing with it, like it's definitely really good. It is something I need to transition towards, but
yeah, it's really cool. Stuff just shows up and you're like, oh, okay, cool. I guess I own this, right? And it works out really nicely. Like, even I got my blinds that are BLE based, the Miflora sensors and the plants and stuff like that. They just pop in.
I feel like I just get like bombarded with all these BLE devices in my home assistant wanting to link in. I feel like it'd be a constant, like everything seems to have Bluetooth in it now.
Yeah. It's not that part's not the best, but it's again, I just ignore a lot of the stuff, right? So when you just hit like because all of a sudden I started seeing BLE beacons, right? So it's just every time somebody walked by the house, it was like, hey, new device, right? And so that I got I just ignored that entire side of it. It's not something I cared for. So,
all right. So I want to hear about your favorite automation that you've done. What do you think? What would it be?
I've got a little list here.
I like lists.
Yeah. My favorite would be, this is awfully practical. So when in the afternoons in summer, so we cop a bit of western sun, and so 5 o'clock, I get a notification if my kids' rooms are above a certain temperature, like 25 degrees, whatever it is.
Yeah.
The actionable notification. So I can click, do you want to turn the air conditioner on? Yes or no? And you click that. It looks if the state of the air conditioner, if the air conditioner is already running and the rooms aren't, like that zone's not on, then it just turns the zone on. If the air conditioner is not running, then it turns the air conditioner on and just puts that zone on, and then waits for a period of time until the rooms get to a certain temperature and turns the air conditioner back off. Unless the air conditioner was already running, then it just turns the zone off. But also if the air conditioner wasn't running and it only turned their zone on, but then while the time delay was happening till for 2 hours or whatever, and I turned on a different zone, then it would only turn their zone off. It wouldn't actually turn the air conditioner back off. It sounds like I don't know, it's a very convoluted way of keeping my kids' rooms cool, but it's something that, just can't be done with anything else.
Yeah.
With a fairly, like, it's a smart air conditioner, but it's fairly dumb. That doesn't have individual room temperature monitoring in it, and, a couple of Zigbee sensors in there and your phone, and, problem solved, like, for something very simple. Because it is a bit problematic if you forget to put the air conditioner on and it's too late and the rooms don't cool down in time for the kids to have a decent sleep.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's probably my favourite one, but then I've got another one which I came about after I had a little hiccup with a car and a garage and a bike.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So now I've got a Bluetooth tracker on my bike mount, my car, like my bike rack for the car. And so when the bike rack's not at home, the assumption is that it's on the top of my car. Yeah. And when I get home, I get a critical notification: do not enter the garage.
Oh, no.
And then if I forget that, when the garage door opens, and this one false triggers a little bit, but I'd take a false trigger over no trigger. But when the garage door opens and the bike's on the roof, and I think I've got to be in automotive mode through my phone. It's got to be in automotive mode or something. I can't quite remember. It also sends me a critical notification to remind me not to drive into the garage. Expensive exercise. So that's,
the rack this is to mount the bike to the car, I'm guessing. Yeah. So what sort of Bluetooth tracker have you put on it?
Honestly, I couldn't tell you. One with a very large battery in it. Very strange, like it's, you have your normal 2032s. It's about 50% the diameter, and it's about I think it's like 15 mils thick or something. It's this massive button battery.
Oh, wow.
It's just some cheap thing off AliExpress or something.
Yeah.
I don't actually know.
And how does that integrate with Home Assistant? Like, how does
Home Assistant? ESP Home.
Brilliant.
So again, talking about proxies, I'm still not using the proxy for it, but it's just set up to, I think, just off its connected or disconnected status or its home away status. I can't quite remember. It then toggles a input, like an input helper, some description to give you like the bike on roof is kind of what I've called it. So if the bike's on the roof, then I fire my automations in various ways.
Yeah, nice. Because I've got some Tile Bluetooth trackers, and I've been able to integrate them with Room Assistant. It's a similar thing, right? So I put a Tile in my daughter's change bag. So whenever she goes out, we always take her change bag with her. So now I know my daughter's home away because we don't have a phone to track her with. But yeah, I'm considering one for my bike, just so that when I go for a ride on the bike, it would be nice for the house to know that I've gone for a bike ride, so that when I get home, I can trigger an automation, maybe open the garage when we pull up in the driveway or something.
Yeah. And I've got I run AirTag. I don't know if you can use AirTags, and you probably can into Home Assistant, but I've got them on bikes, but that's purely for give you a remote chance of finding them again if they ever went walkabouts.
That's true.
Not to say that's a guarantee, but
better than nothing, right?
Yeah, better than nothing. I looked at Room Assistant a long time ago. It's probably something again I need to revisit, but like I haven't seen the result, like the use case of me knowing the house knowing where I am. Within the house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I only have one instance of Room Assistant, and that's like for me, it covers the whole house, right?
Okay.
I'm not a believer in carrying your phone around to detect which room you're in all the time, because I leave my phone on the couch and walk into another room, right? So, always, but meh.
Yeah, I think someone again on your show a long time ago talked about having like your music follow you around in the house.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah.
And I just and I was like, that'd be really cool. And then I'm like, or I can just have it on in the whole house, and I'll just walk around.
Just have it, playing everywhere.
Yeah. And then I go out and I've got, we've got some speakers outside and some in the garage, and I walk outside after dark. And I'm like, oh, they're still playing music.
Yeah.
That's all right until something embarrassing in your playlist comes playing and your neighbours get to hear it. Right?
Yeah. Oh, it's usually not that loud, so the neighbours shouldn't hear it. But.
Yeah.
That's funny. So speaking of presence and stuff, like you clearly use BLE tags for a couple of things, right? Do you do anything else from a presence perspective?
Nah, like the house presence is basically zero. I've got a toggle, like an away mode toggle that I will, literally manually toggle, or I have another toggle which then toggles it. So I can say, like, when my phone leaves, enable away mode. So, you're packing the car, you think, I need to turn away mode on. And so I don't want to turn it on yet, but I'll turn it on when we leave. So when my phone leaves, it toggles off, and when it arrives back, it turns it turns on and then turns off, whichever way around.
Yeah. So you just use the companion app for all that?
Yeah, companion app. Yeah, exclusively a companion app for that. And I really would like to be able to automate that a little bit more, but it's probably there's a fair bit of effort there, I think, on my side. So it's still good. Like, so when the away mode toggles, on, like I turn all the fans off, I send the vacuum cleaners back to the dock. I think there's a couple of other things. Might pause the music and turn TVs off. Like, it just kind of blasts everything out to say just shut the house down, basically.
Yeah.
And then while that toggle is on and away mode is on, then it'll fire automations slightly differently during the day. So it'll close the blinds, or the western blinds in the afternoon, it'll only turn some lights on. It won't let fans turn on automatically. It won't, it won't let a few things happen automatically, but all our other things, so just as a trying not to, have the house running while you're away.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Not that, like, most of the things don't generally consume that much power, but it is, when you're away for a week and lights are on for no reason, it's especially in the evening when not producing any solar, it's just a waste of money, waste of energy.
On the solar, in your original email you had as one of your missions to work on was the ability to set up the solar forecast to determine whether to charge the car. Did you ever get to that level?
No. Solar forecast doesn't cover the east coast of Australia.
And of course it doesn't. Right?
So
it probably covers every part of the US.
So I probably need to look at it again. But yeah, the official solar forecast integration, I was went to set it up and put my location in. And it was like, map doesn't work.
Yeah,
it's like
of course,
that's less than ideal. So now I just set the car up to charge. It just charges twice a week, I think.
Yeah.
It's keep it pretty basic. Charge it on a Sunday night and charge it on like a Tuesday or a Wednesday night or something like that, and it sees me through the week. If I've worked from home and it's got a bit of extra charge, it's from solar, then it's a bit of a win. But I need to look at the stats on how much I charge from solar. So I've got My Energy Zappy, which is a solar aware charger for my car, and it definitely charges my car less than probably what I would have thought it would have.
Oh, interesting.
Interesting.
Because we've got a 6 kilowatt inverter. This house draws, can draw between 300 and 400 watts idle. Like, that's completely idle. Yeah. So by the time you have a couple of TVs on and a few things happening during the day, you can be drawing over a kilowatt pretty quickly. And so all of a sudden you've only got 5 kilowatts left to charge your car, and that's peak. That's not at 9 in the morning. At 9 in the morning, you've only got, 2 kilowatts to charge your car, so you're only producing 3 kilowatts, I should say, but then you've got the dishwasher going and you've got the washing machine going. So all of a sudden you've got, you need a minimum of 1.4 kilowatts to charge your car.
Yep.
And sometimes you don't have that. So
yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
And so that little device there, so that doesn't integrate with Home Assistant, it just runs independently and does its own calculations.
Yeah, it's got its own CT clamps on the incomers coming into the house. It runs fully standalone, but doesn't need an internet connection or anything. It just runs all by itself. And I interface with it in Home Assistant. I see data and stuff out of it, but I don't. It doesn't need Home Assistant to do its charging of the car in a smart way. So there was, I did initially look at getting a Gen 2 Tesla charger, and you can run a Raspberry Pi to piggyback off that to adjust charge rates. And it was a little bit hairy, modifying a car charger basically, and needing to, then you'd be solely reliant on Home Assistant to adjust charge rates. So I just thought, it's not. There was a cost saving there, but it just wasn't worth it. So
I
went away from it. But
and so have you got like full energy dashboard in Home Assistant setup? Like, you're able to see how much solar you're producing, how much energy you're consuming?
No, I don't use the energy dashboard. I don't really like the layout of it. It just doesn't read very well for me. It's something I do need to work on. Is my Lovelace layouts a little bit more, because at the moment I basically just have a graph that has the house consumption, solar output, if I'm exporting power, and how much your car's charging. So I've got 4 graphs on top of one just on a standard card. So every time I want to actually see any details, and it's over 12 hours or something, so when I want to see some actual details, I need to start clicking things to make it legible. I'm not even talking about it making it look nice, just making it legible. So I need to work on that.
Well, I mean, realistically, do you use the UI a lot, or is it just kind of a one-off, like, hey, I need to change something or do something like that?
What was that, using the UI, did you say? Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah.
For like, a lot of that stuff, I've got like my own car, like own Lovelace, forgotten the word for it. Anyway, thing
dashboard
set up just for me that my wife doesn't have access to, which has just got a whole heap of like testing pages and information and stuff. And the solar side of thing just sits in there, and I look at it out of interest, when you start talking with mates about solar production, and obviously people are very curious about my car. So I'd pull out a couple of stats, but in reality, I don't look at it that much. I've actually just set up I've just got a ink plate 10, and so I'm setting up home plate on that. I've seen a couple of projects floating around. So the home plate project. So I want to have a little mini dashboard set up, probably in the pantry with a couple of things. But it won't have anything to do with the car. It'll probably have, house consumption for the day and total export for the day for solar. You could probably do energy put into the car for the day, maybe. Yeah. A few little things like that, little project I want to work on to actually have an actual UI interface there that is visible to everyone, rather than having to get out and look at your phone. I get a little bit sick of looking at a phone.
Have you done any automations based around like if you're producing solar or not? Like,
I have one. I thought I was going to have lots, and I have one.
Oh, right.
And it's a token gesture. I can. I've got some electric, like power tools, garden tools.
Yep. So
I can, once I'm done for the day, mowing the lawn or whatever, I can put the batteries on charge and not actually charge them straight away. I can set them so they wait for enough solar to be exporting them, then they'll start and charge off solar. But 15 minutes later they're charged and they kick themselves back out. So it's not a huge cost saving exercise. It's a real nice to have that doesn't actually add really any value at all.
Yeah. Yes. Like
sometimes it's fun, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a fun thing, and it's and it is useful. Like you're still every bit of energy is save pushing out on the grid. The Australian energy market's in a bit of turmoil with solar production during the day. So if you can help out a little bit there, it's good. But in reality, charging 2 5 amp hour batteries is completely insignificant compared to a car that can pull 7.4 kilowatts and an air conditioner that can pull 6, an oven that can pull 2.4. Our house I've seen peaks of 12 kilowatts coming in on this house. Like it's pretty significant in comparison to, leaving a 9-watt downlight on for an extra 15 minutes is.
That makes sense.
All right, so I want to go into something else that you had in your to be worked on list. Let's see if you got to this. Roller blinds. How did you go with roller blinds? Did you get them automated?
The short answer to that, yes. Long answer to the how did you go? Not so well.
Okay.
So without knowing what I even had at that time, so we've got how many have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. I've got 6 roller blinds in the house, with a mixture of Somfy motors and Rolleys Automate with a Pulse 2 hub.
Yep.
The Somfy ones, we've got a big external roller shutter for a staircase window, and that does its thing. But I wanted to go down the Rolleys path because our blinds that we actually had installed were completely by chance. They're actually Rolleys branded blinds,
which is lucky.
Nice.
A weird coincidence.
Yeah.
But they have they run their own hub with a proprietary communication protocol that does two-way communication, so you can get battery status back, and you can also set the blind to a percentage open rather than in the Somfy ones are just up, down, or a saved position. So I wanted to be able to set them anywhere in between, and when they work really well. The range on it is, you're talking, the spec sheet says the range is 30 feet or 10 meters or whatever, and in reality the range is about 3 meters. So I had to get an extra set of an extra hub and a few other things, which is a bit annoying, but it's good when they call to close. So I run a helper, with the blind's preferred position for at any given time. And so my automations will just toggle that helper. And so when they go to close, if the window's open, they won't actually close the whole way. They'll close to they'll close to 66% open. So you as soon as you look at the blind, you think, oh, why is that down? Oh, it's supposed to be
window's open.
It's supposed to be closed. A window open. You close the window, and which then fires an automation to then close the blind entirely.
Yep.
Which is really good, because without that, leaving blinds open, they're a fully cassetted roller blinds that actually have a track on either side. If you shut the roller blind with a window open, it just blows the blind out of the track, and you've got to push it back in. It's not the end of the world, but you just have to push it back in. So being able to prevent the blind from closing with a $12 window sensor is awesome. Absolutely awesome.
I've got roller blinds that don't have the tracks on the side, and so if the window's open and the blinds come down, they just flap with the wind, right? And then it's just frustrating.
Yeah, so that would annoy me as well. So even if they weren't fully cassetted, I'd still do something similar to this. And it's to me, this is like the main perk of Home Assistant. Like you can't, like no blind motor manufacturer has window sensors that limit the ability to close depending on the states to then close blinds when you actually close a window. Like that doesn't exist anywhere. Yeah. Like, even when you start talking about, going down into the Google and Amazon and Apple ecosystems, like that still doesn't work. Like you can't beat Home Assistant for doing something like that. It's not and it's not overly complex. Like it's a Zigbee, USB stick and a couple of really cheap sensors. Perfect.
Exactly.
That's like, that's the most amazing part about Home Assistant to me.
Yeah. The ability to, integrate all these little different ecosystems is its selling point, and no one's been able to beat that ability yet.
No, not that I've looked actually, to be honest, but I haven't looked at none of the main players, as in the major ecosystems, have come close to it. Like maybe,
and even if they did, it's going to be pricey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, very definitely, it's going to be pricey. Like even you look at any. A simple reed switch, like the door window acquirer sensors that I'm sure everyone that listens to this has got a whole stack of them.
Yep.
To go and get a brand name one from that says, works with Amazon or works with Google or works with HomeKit, like they're not $10, they're $50 each. Yeah. And when you've got a dozen of them in the house, it's all of a sudden it's it's a massive financial burden. So,
how did you go with your luck sensor for the roller blinds outside? Any luck?
Yes, really good, actually. So I've got I was trying to work out how to close that, like the main roller blind. So the main roller shutter on our staircase window in the afternoons when the sun hits it. And I started using, the angle of the sun and, time of day and all this kind of stuff. And it just wasn't that reliable. As the seasons changed, it wasn't really that reliable. It'd start closing at odd times. So I ended up just getting a luck sensor, probably Acquire branded again, probably. And mounting it outside, in a little enclosure to try and keep the water out of it. And, had to do a little bit of fine tuning with it just to work out like what 30,000 lux is or whatever it is. But it works really well. So basically now when it reaches some arbitrary value, 25,000 lux, which aligns with basically the being in full sun, and the forecast temperature for the day is above like 28 degrees. So there's a couple of different levels, but yeah, it basically just closes the blind when the sun comes onto it. Like it's amazing. So I'll come home in summer, and some days it'll be half closed, and other days it'll be fully shut.
Yeah,
and the house is like massively cooler for it. Like the window that it covers is 3 meters high by 1.2 meters wide. So without that roller blind on there, it lets in like a phenomenal amount of heat. So that's helped. It just helps the air conditioner cool the house down in the afternoons a bit quicker.
I've been able to use a weather station outside that integrates with Home Assistant, just like an EcoWit, which I got off Amazon. And similar thing, right? Like I use the lux sensor from the weather station, so the whole house knows, right, it's bright outside, so I can close these blinds. Then I used, like if it's in the afternoons on the west side of the house, close the blinds. And then it's based on the because the weather station is like using my data, right? It's not like, bomb weather stations ages away. So yeah, it can tell me like what it feels like, the temperature feels like outside. And then if it's a certain temperature outside or it's the right lux level, it'll close the blinds down, do all that sort of fancy stuff.
Yeah, so you're still going through it, in much the same way as, the temperature of the day, how bright it is, and and close the blinds. And so then I've expanded that out to all the Western blinds that have automated, go on the same thing. They'll shut in the afternoons, and it makes a massive difference in this house.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's. I've actually not thought. I don't know why I didn't think to use lux as part of a calculation of even keeping it open and closed. Right now, I actually have my blinds going just pretty much on and off. Like the at least in the winter when I automated these blinds, it wasn't again cooling the house down wasn't the issue. Right, it's for me. But when I do have it running with my good evening script or whatever, right? So as part of that automation, I have that triggering about 45 minutes before sunset. So again, just keep the house a little brighter before it comes down. But then the blinds do close with that, so that's actually not a bad. Instead of leveraging that, leverage the lux, because then at that point, if it's just super dark outside, then close the blinds anyways, and or on the converse, if it's nice and bright outside, keep it open for as long as you can, and then close it after. So that's a pretty good metric, actually.
Yeah, I still need to utilize lux a little bit more as well. Like the when the lights come on in the evening, so they come on, say at sunset or 20 minutes after sunset or 20 minutes before sunset, whatever it is. But I have another automation that if it's cloudy or raining, then they come on like an hour before sunset. But I can't exactly remember what it is, but in reality, like I really just need to do it, go off lux. Lux would be far more reliable than is it cloudy or partly cloudy? And that's like the difference between my lights coming on an hour earlier or not. And so some days it's like, it says it's partly cloudy and you're like, no, it's pretty cloudy out there. Like it's pretty dark. You should come on.
Well, it's also a lot of it's just approximations, right? So it's like it should be cloudy. It doesn't mean it's cloudy, right? So
yeah.
The worst thing is, it like can it be the opposite, partly cloudy, and you're like, I can't see a cloud up there. Like, what are you talking about? Where is this cloud? And
that's like partly cloudy covers like there's a big range of partly cloudy. It can be like a little bit cloudy with a lot of sun, or it can be a lot cloudy with a little bit of sun. And they, inside your house, there's a massive difference there with how much light actually gets let in.
Sure.
I put it on the to-do list.
All right. Finally, before we let you go, because I'm interested in this one, water tank level. Did you were able to get that?
Sorry, finish your question. Sorry, Phil.
We were able to get that done. You said you were going to do a pressure sensor.
Yeah, I've got the pressure sensor, and I've got a Shelley Uno, and a step down, like a DC step down converter, because I should have bought a 12 volt sensor, not a 5 volt sensor. I bought it. I can't even remember what I did. It was that long ago. and then one of my many problems is that I thought it was a 1/4 inch NPT. It's actually an 1/8 NPT. So my reducing nipple is the wrong size, so I can't even fit it. But yeah, I was hoping to set up a pressure sensor on the water tank rather than using. A lot of people use ultrasonics, and a lot of people say that ultrasonics is extremely unreliable. And we've got a drain, like a inch drain valve on the bottom of the tank. It's only a relatively small tank, and it'd be nice to have to know. But I do need to do that.
Because my question here was like, so you've got, you said I'm going to do a pressure sensor at the bottom of the tank. I'm like, okay, so what, are you lifting up this tank and then putting like a weight sensor underneath it, or
no?
What is this going to do?
It's like a pressure transmitter. So you just like a threaded pressure transmitter that just does it's like it's a really low range. It's like a 0 to 5 PSI, 0 to 10 volt sensor. And so I was just going to do a calculation, there'd be some minimum water level in there that would give you a pressure, and the maximum water level in there is about 1.5 meters. So that would give you another pressure, and just do a 0 to 100%.
Interesting.
It means I can just monitor, like so we water the garden from that tank. It means I can just keep an eye on it. And if it's not filling, or if it's not draining, or if it's, it just gives me some visibility on it. I have an issue with our little pump in there. It's got a submersible pump. When it runs out, when the tank runs dry, it auto switches over to mains water. But I haven't actually worked out when it auto resets itself to actually turn the pump back on. So I've gone out there a few times and been like, this pump should be running now, and it's not. And the tank's been full, so I actually have to hit the reset button physically on the device. So if I could set up an automation to say, the tank's been at 0%, or it's been at 5% or whatever, and now it's come back up to 50%, then you probably need to push the reset button and just get a notification, reset, push the reset button. Or even then I could get like a little switch bot out there and the Bluetooth proxy, and
that's it.
Auto fire it off the automation. That would be the goal, but maybe one day. Maybe when.
So do you think that'll be more reliable than a ultrasonic sensor to say how much water is in there?
100%. Yeah, very definitely. Ultrasonics are, a direct pressure measurement using whatever technology it is. Far more reliable than ultrasonic sensor. Yeah, you wouldn't see that in the industry. Like industry would rely on pressure sensor.
Pressure.
Okay. Because I've got like a water tank out the back too. I'm like, all right, I don't know how much water's in there. I don't know how long the water's been in the tank, like since we moved in. I don't even know if water is actually getting into the tank, like from the gutters. Like there is water in the tank. I want to know how much is in there, right?
I actually had a friend, because this water can be extremely damaging to the foundation of a house, obviously. And he bought a house that was fairly recently built, a few blocks from where I am. And he noticed that his tank was never filling. And he's going, this is a bit strange. And he's actually worked out that he's got a cracked, charged line somewhere under his garage. And so it was actually washing away a whole heap of material under his driveway. And it's turned into it's turned into like a real major, like a proper major problem, like a proper structural problem. So hopefully he's got that sorted. I need to ask him about it, actually.
That's something you don't want to wait on.
No, definitely not. Not saying that Home Assistant would detect something like that, but at least to give you a little bit of visibility. We've had, we get a lot of rain here. Look, we've had 50 mils of rain in a day, and my tank hasn't gone up at all.
Exactly,
there's a problem.
Yeah. I'd like to know that.
Well, I mean, that's just as easy as having a graph mapping the rain to what you've actually an increase in your tank, right? So.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. I'd be able to work out how much water comes off my roof, per millimeter of rain.
There you go. Well, my weather station tells me how much rain is currently happening, so then I could do all right, if I'm getting this amount of rain in the hour, then I should have the tank fill up.
Yeah, but the tank should fill a certain amount far out. That's I'm not going to get there. Just putting it out there. Definitely plausible though. Like you could 100%, you could have a rain gauge and you could determine how much, you have 10 mils of rain, my tank should increase by, 20% capacity. If it hasn't, then alarm. Like that's well within the realms of Home Assistant.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit ridiculous that, that it's capable of something like that. It's a far-fetched idea that probably doesn't add a huge amount of value, but anyway.
But there would be someone out there that may find value in it, and they could do it, and Home Assistant allows them to do it, right?
Yeah, and someone else do it first, so I can, copy and paste their code.
Yeah. Dump it into a blueprint, and off you go.
Yeah. Oh, blueprint, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah.
So one last one. I know Phil said the last one was the last one, but you talked about using an ESP8266 plugged into your TV to check the TV state.
Yeah. I love this thing. Honestly, it's the best. I've got a LG TV that's
not WebOS.
Yeah, WebOS 5 maybe.
Okay.
It's old. Okay. Like it is.
Oh, so it won't integrate with Home Assistant then?
It does actually. Yeah. It integrates with Home Assistant. It must have been one of like the first on it. It's like a 42-inch TV that we bought 8 years ago, and it still works. It integrates with Home Assistant, but it's really, really slow to start. Like you're talking about a minute before it actually fires up and you get a status from Home Assistant.
Yeah.
And what I use for that status is I'll turn the music off that's in the lounge room. So I'll turn my Sonos off. Once that turns on, then the Sonos turns off. And so I'm sitting there. It just annoys me. For a minute, you've got music blaring and the TV going. Just wait. It'll turn itself off automatically. Just wait.
Yeah.
And so I don't know where I came up with the idea. I think I probably stole it from someone, but just put a little 8266 into one of the USB ports, and those USB ports fire up instantly. It connects to Wi-Fi within like 10 seconds.
Instant.
It says connected and turns it off. It's it has been super reliable apart from was it 2023.4 seemed to have, I'm not sure what happened. I actually, an hour ago, I actually reflashed it. So hopefully it works tomorrow morning. There's something going on with it.
Yeah.
But I had a Samsung TV that integrated really well, and it ended up having a warranty replacement. I ended up with a Hisense TV, and they don't integrate very well with Home Assistant. And I was like, this will be perfect. I'll just put a ESP8266 in the USB port. This is fine. This is super easy. This is amazing. Yeah. And they turn their USB ports on randomly when the TV's off.
Oh, no.
Why?
Yeah, so
why?
Just overnight, I'll check the logs, and overnight it turns these USB ports on 6 times overnight, just randomly. So I was like, oh no. So I had to
What's the logic?
Rip it out, and I don't know, but I ripped it out and then had to set up. Sorry, you're getting a very long answer to your question, Rohan, but
No,
I had to then set up. So I don't use Node-RED except for there's a Spotify integration thing that I use. That's another story. But I end up having to set up an MQTT server within Node-RED. No, MQTT client within Node-RED to then speak to the Hisense runner MQTT server in the TV, so I can pass commands off to it to the TV, and I can also get the state back from the TV. I was like, this would be perfect. I can get the state over MQTT. This is just amazing. And what it sends back when you turn the TV on isn't actually a turn on signal. It gives you a turn off. It turns off really reliably, but it doesn't turn on reliably. As in, you don't see the state change that it turned on. I never worked it out. So
if you just put a smart switch on it and get energy level, so
I've thought about doing that, but to do that, I've got to take the TV off the wall because it's wall mounted and it's a 75-inch screen, so it's like a 3-person job.
Yeah.
So what I do though is when Sonos turns to, I've got a Sonos Beam, and when it turns to its input to TV, then that triggers an input boolean to say, the TV is on because the Sonos is turned on, and then when the TV turns off, the MQTT, that ping back through Node-RED actually turns it back off. So it's a long way around of getting the TV state, but energy would have been far easier if I'd put a plug in before I put the TV on the wall.
Does the Sonos Beam, when you turn the TV off, will the Sonos Beam then change its input to like no input? Because I think I've got a play bar and I think it remains on the TV input.
Yeah, it stays on the TV for like 5 or 10 minutes,
Gotcha.
and before it changes its state to, whatever it changes to. I'm not quite sure. So so my automation does fail there if you turn the TV off and then turn it back on again.
Yeah.
Because that TV talks to the light, the light that's behind me, it talks to that and the blind in the room and stuff. But I also I've got an NVIDIA Shield and a PS5 as well. So those turning on, there's multiple ways to turn that input boolean on. If the Shield turns on, or if the PS5 turns on, or the TV turns on, you just assume that the TV's on. The Sonos. Oh, I've forgotten.
Yeah.
Honestly, there are that many automations, I don't even know where to start.
Yeah. Sometimes, if someone asks, what's your favorite thing in your smart home? You're like, I don't know where to start.
How does this work? I think it works like this. And then after they leave, you're like, how does that actually work?
Yeah.
And you scroll through it and you're like, oh, no, I just lied to them. That's not how it works at all.
That's,
cool.
That's fine.
Thank you for taking the time talking to us, and really appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Cheers.